Hello and welcome back to the Spellfire Club, where we talk anything and everything Dungeons and Dragons. We're in the middle of rolling up a first level character using 5th edition rules, and so far we've done abilities, we've done saving throws, we've done skills, we've done like armor and weapon proficiencies, we've also done a few odds and ends, and then last time we filled in our equipment, which included our weapons and armor, which gave us like what we can attack with, and our attack bonuses and our damage bonuses, and importantly, our armor class. So now we're set to actually play with our character, but there are some things that you get based on your class and your race that can make playing more fun. So we're going to fill those things in. They're called features or traits. And then after that, I think the very last meeting will be when we do the background stuff. Okay? So without further ado, let's get rolling. All right, welcome back. We are rolling up a first level character, and we have so far done the ability scores, saving throws, skills, some armor weapon proficiencies. We've filled in our weapons that we have. We haven't filled, well, we've filled in our equipment, which only is an explorer's pack for this dude. We've done armor class, initiative, speed, hit points, and hit dice. And of course we picked our class, which is barbarian, and our race, which is mountain dwarf. And now we're at the point where we could play this character, but there are some special things that you get being a barbarian and being a mountain dwarf that we haven't filled in, and those go over here in these features and traits section. And then the last thing we haven't done is we haven't picked a background, which can give us some personalities and stuff, and can also add some features and traits. Right now, I think we're just going to do features and traits from your class and from your race. So first, you know what, let's do, since we're a mountain dwarf, let's do the race first. So I'm going to flip up, or over to the dwarf section, and that's in the races chapter, which is like chapter 2 or something like that. What is chapter? Chapter 2, races. Okay, so go through, find your race. We are a dwarf. We can read through about all kinds of stuff about dwarf sort of history. But what we're really interested in today is these dwarf traits. We've actually used one or two of these. Have we used one of these? Yeah, we did, because the ability score increased. So if you're a dwarf, you get a constitution score increase by 2, which we did on our guy, or gal. We don't know which one we're going to do. Then age, you can write that down. Now notice that on this sheet, they don't have things for age, and they don't have things for your size, like your height. There are some character sheets that do have that, but the standard one for D&D does not have that. You can write that on the back, though, if you want. If you want to know how exactly tall you are, and your age and all that kind of stuff, you can kind of just add a section on the back to put that stuff in. The thing that they do have on this, though, is your speed, because that becomes very important in combat, and dwarves have a base speed of 25. And this is interesting. Your speed is not reduced by wearing heavy armor. So I would consider that a dwarf trait that we should probably write down. These other ones I wouldn't necessarily write down right now, other than, well, this ability score increase we've already incorporated. So I'm going to just put up here a heading, dwarf traits. I'm going to underline that there. So notice I've switched out to a mechanical pencil, because if I try to write dwarf traits with our little joke pencil, or even a regular one, it's going to be pretty hard to fit all this stuff in this box. So I switch out to either a very sharp normal pencil, or even better, a mechanical pencil. I do dwarf traits, and I put a little like bullet point here. And I'm going to put in speed. Oh, hello, Dean. How are you doing? You want to get in the video? You got to come over here. One of our cats, Dean, is now on the table. You making an appearance? No? Jump down? Okay. So speed, I'm going to just put speed and a little arrow and says, I'm going to say not reduced by heavy armor. So if you wear certain types of armor, really heavy armor, then your speed will go down. But in this case, a dwarf doesn't. Now that's not like a called out special thing, like the next one's called dark vision, which is sort of a special trait, right? It's like you have dark vision, you can see in the dark. They don't call that out here. They don't say like dwarf trait of, you know, heavy armor hauler or something like that. They don't call it out, but I'm going to write it down simply because it is an unusual trait that you don't normally see in the other races. So I'm going to put that down. Speed. The next one is dark vision. That's actually a good one to write down, because one thing that happens in Dungeons and Dragons we don't think about a lot is that you end up underground. And if you're underground and you're like a regular person, and if you've ever been into a cave, it's dark you can't see a thing, right? There's no light source. You literally have no idea where you are. So in D&D, certain races have dark vision, so they can see underground. And the way it works is, so you're accustomed to life underground. You have superior vision in dark and dim conditions. You can see in dim light, so like real low light, kind of like in the evening or something, within 60 feet of you as if it were bright light. So if you were in a normal lit room. And in total darkness, as if it were dim light. And there's different things that, modifiers that apply when you're like fighting in dim light versus bright light and that kind of stuff. So, so essentially you can see in the dark. You can't discern dark color, only darkness. In darkness, only shades of gray. All right, so dark vision is very important for all in D&D, because if you have dark vision, you don't have to worry about going into a dungeon without a torch. You're still okay. So dark vision says, let's see. Yeah, I just put 60 feet. And the reason is because almost all dark visions have like a range in which you can see. But that range is usually, up to this range you can see like in bright light, and up to this range you can see in, or in darkness. You can see if it's like dim light, you can see like it's bright. And up to 60 feet, if it's dark, you can see like it's dim. So I generally just put the number there and go with that. Next is, let's see here. Dwarven Resilience. You have advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage. So I'll put in here, I'm just going to put resilience. So dwarves are kind of tough. And so advantage on saving throws against poison. So I'm just going to do advantage versus poison. I'll remember that that's a saving throw. Poison versus poison. I'll put save. And then the other thing is resistance against poison damage. And resistance poison damage. So two things you can do here when you're writing these out. You can literally just write the little title here, Dwarven Resilience, but it doesn't really tell you what it is, and you might forget during the game. So I always write it out, and then I put a little like notes, little cliff notes about what it is. The next one is Dwarven Combat Training. This is very important because if you notice, certain classes can only use certain weapons. In our case, we're a barbarian. We can use all kinds of weapons. But some classes are like, you can only use simple weapons. Well, if you are a dwarf, you are automatically proficient. It says you have proficiency with battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, and war hammer. So even if you were just let's say even a dwarf mage, technically you can and be proficient in battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, and war hammer. Because you're a dwarf and like from a young age you were trained on those weapons. So that's very important. So in our case, it doesn't really affect us. But I'm only going to do, I'll just write down combat training. And I'm not going to fill it in because it doesn't affect our character. Now, if it was a character going to use simple weapons, then I would list all the weapons right here. And then I might even put them over here in the weapons proficiency section. All right, the next thing, tool proficiency. You gain proficiency with the artisan tools of your choice. Smith's tools, brewer supplies, or mason's tools. So that's actually quite good. I'm going to actually put this over here because here's our tool. But you know what? I'll write it here, and then we'll also put it over here. Because when you go to look at your character and say, oh, what are you proficient in? Any tools? You're most likely going to go over to this section. But I'll set it here because it's under a dwarf trait, and then we'll just copy it in both places. So tool proficiency. Tool proficiency, and what do we want to be? We're good with Smith's tools. That allows you to do like blacksmithing stuff to make weapons and armor, that kind of thing. Brewer supplies to make like ale or other brewed beverages, or mason's tools, which let you do cut stone. I think axey kind of person. Let's make it brewer supplies. Well, yeah, let's do that. Brewer supplies. I'll just say brewer. So over here, I'm going to say brewer. That lets me brew up ales and other things. So that'll be fun. And then the next thing is stone cutting. Dwarves get a lot. Some races only have a few things, but dwarves get a lot. For stone cutting, whenever you make an intelligence history check related to the origin of stonework, you are considered proficient with a history skill. And add double your proficiency bonus to the check instead of your normal proficiency bonus. Wow, okay, so I'm going to say double 2x prof, I'll just say proficiency bonus on history, and then I'll say stone rolls. All right, so what would that mean for us? So 2 times proficiency bonus in history stone rolls. So if you're in a cave and you're like, look, there's an old wall here, and you walked up to that old wall, you would say, well, I'm going to try to identify it. And you would come over here and you'd say, okay, well, what's my history skill? Oh, it's +0, right? That's my modifier for it. It's +0. But no. Since you're a dwarf, you know all about stonework and stuff because you've been taught it since you were young. And so you would say, okay, I actually get 2 times my proficiency bonus on my roll. So it's instead of a +2, I get 2 times that. It's +4. So I'd roll my d20 for my history check to see if I could identify the wall. I would get a 5, but I would actually get a 9 because I'd add double my proficiency bonus. The DM might still say, well, you don't know what it is. But you have a much better chance of identifying that than some other, piece of history that you might stumble across. All right. That's good. Now, languages. You can speak, read, and write Common and Dwarvish. And okay, so Dwarvish is full of hard consonants and guttural sounds, and those characteristics spill over into whatever other language a dwarf might speak. Okay, so if you wanted to really roleplay your dwarf up, that would tell you that, well, if you're gonna, make him speak Common, then they'd have like hard sounds. They'd be like, I need some stone or something like that, right? He'd have guttural sounds and he'd have like sharp edges to things. So language is important down here. It's actually a proficiency. I'm going to skip one line and do languages here. And I will do Dwarvish. And then Common. And I usually leave a little space because sometimes your background will give you another language. So if I'm going to write another proficiency down here, I'll put it below language. And then subrace. There are 2 main subraces of dwarves that populate the worlds of D&D. Hill dwarves and mountain dwarves. We picked the mountain dwarf. So we chose one of them. So we come down, we skip the hill dwarf stuff. Don't get that. But we get the mountain dwarf stuff. So our ability score increase went to strength +2, which we already did. Dwarven armor training. You have proficiency with light and medium armor. So even if you were some like mage or something like that, you would be proficient with light and medium armor because you're a mountain dwarf. In this case, that doesn't really affect us because we've already got a light and medium proficiency in armor and shields. So that doesn't really do that. I could write it down. I'll put it here. It doesn't really apply. I'll just list it. Dwarven armor training. And then if for some reason, I can't imagine a reason in which we would somehow switch classes. I can't imagine that. We would still be proficient in it. But that doesn't even really apply. It would apply if you had some sort of race or you picked some sort of class that did not have those armor trainings. Okay. And then that's it. The next page over here is an elf, which we're not doing this time. So those are our dwarf traits. We also get traits. That's based on our race, obviously. We also get traits based on our class. And so we'll flip over to our class, which is Barbarian. That's, I believe, Chapter 3. Yep, Chapter 3 classes. We flip to the Barbarian, which happens to be the first, page 46. We've gone down through all this stuff for these class features. Now we're on to, we've done equipment. Now we're on to these things. Rage, they don't really call them out, actually. They just consider it part of the class features. So it's under that heading. So Rage is one of our class features. So I'm going to put Barbarian, I guess features? That's what they call them. Barbarian features as a new heading. I'll underline that. Okay. First bullet point is Rage. And it says, in battle you fight with primal ferocity. On your turn you can enter a Rage as a bonus action. We'll explain that. I'll do like a combat round meeting at some point to sort of explain what the bonus action is. While raging, you gain the following benefits if you aren't wearing heavy armor. Okay, that's important, actually. I didn't know that before. I mean, technically you're not proficient in it, but you could wear it, even if you're not proficient. But you would not have this ability if you had heavy armor on, which isn't going to be a problem for us, because we have no armor currently. You have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. So Rage, I'm going to go and put advantage strength, check, and save. All right, that's good. That's the first thing. So if you're in a rage, you've put yourself into a rage as a bonus action, you get that advantage if you have to do a strength check, like I'm gonna lift this gate or something, which would be like an athletics skill too. So you get advantage on that. So you get to roll 2 d20s and take the top one if you're trying to like lift a gate or something while you're enraged. And you also have it on strength saving throws. So if you're like, I don't know what a strength saving throw would be. Well, I said the thing like somebody threw a rock at your head in that one meeting, and you had to like shove it out of the way or something. You would have advantage on that. All right. When you make a melee weapon attack using strength, you gain a bonus to the damage roll that increases as you gain levels as a barbarian, as shown on the rage damage column of the barbarian table. Oh, that sounds complicated, but let's see if we can find it. Oh, here it is. Rages, that's how many rages. Rage damage is this column. So we're first level, so we get a +2 damage when we're doing a melee attack. So I'm going to just say plus rage damage, which I'm going to just put in as +2, even though that number is going to change as we get higher level. But plus rage damage on melee attacks. All right, that's our next feature next thing that rage gets us. And then also, let's see, you have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. That's actually pretty impressive. So, and then the next one is resistance. Bludgeoning, I'm just going to do the first letters. Bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. So that's actually pretty good. If we're in battle and there's a bunch of guys around us, baddies like orcs, or you're fighting an owlbear or something, and you need to really kick it up a notch, you can go into a rage. Gives you advantages on your strength checks for saving throws or just a check, and then you also get extra damage, +2 damage on all of your attacks with a melee weapon, and you get to resist bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. That's very good because resistance means that you take essentially half damage from those things. So if the owlbear slashed you with his claw and you took like 12 points of damage, you would actually, since it's slashing, would only take 6. So that's really good. So yeah, super good. And the only thing you can't be wearing in order to enter a rage is heavy armor. If you have anything else, you're fine to enter your rage. Okay, so if you were multicasting or you had some class that allowed you to cast spells, like I think elves get one cantrip that they can cast even if they're not a spellcaster. If you do that, then you can't cast them or concentrate on them while raging. So you need to know that. Your rage lasts for 1 minute. So I'm going to put that in there. 1 minute. It ends early if you are knocked unconscious or if your turn ends and you haven't attacked a hostile creature since your last turn or taken damage since then. You can also end your rage on your turn as a bonus action. So you can end it whenever you want, but that's interesting. If you get knocked unconscious, I guess it kind of makes sense because you're knocked out. You can't be raging while asleep. Or, this is very important, if you end your turn and you haven't attacked a hostile creature since your last turn or taken damage since then. So essentially you're in a battle rage and you have to be like in the moment of combat. And if for some reason there's a lull in combat and there's nobody to attack you, or nobody that you attacked and nobody damaged you, then your rage subsides. So that's important. You don't want to rage if there's like one person and they're like if it's a kobold, you don't want to go in a rage and then whack the kobold, and then that kobold's gone, nobody else is around, and your rage ends, and you're like, oh, well, but I really need to rage? So that's good. 1 minute, and then I'm going to put after it that, let's see, 1 minute unless unconscious, unconscious, no attack, last round, or no damage received. All right, that's a lot. Looks like a lot, but really in the game it just means it's easy to do. I've actually played a barbarian before, and doing the rage stuff is pretty easy. Once you go into rage, usually do it when there's a bunch of bad guys around, and usually you're right in the thick of things with your melee weapon, and so you end up having either damage done to you or attacks every round. All right, once you've raged the number of times shown for your barbarian level in the rages column of the barbarian table, you must finish a long rest before you can rage again. Rages. Okay, so we're first level on this rages thing. It says 2. So we have 2 rages. I'm going to write that down. 2 per long rest. Oops. Bad eraser. 2 per long rest. All right, so that is done. Now that's actually, I'll tell you, this rage thing is probably one of the most complicated of features that any of the classes get. And so that one's done. The next ones are, the normal ones are like this next one that we're going to do, which is unarmored defense. While you are not wearing any armor, your armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity modifier, which is the normal for everybody, but then plus your constitution modifier. You can use a shield and still gain this benefit. So I'm just going to write that down under another bullet point as unarmored defense. And I will say, I will put a little thing here. AC is equal to 10 plus dex plus constitution, con. When no armor. Good, all right. Some shorthand there. All right, then the next one is called reckless attack. But note that it says starting at 2nd level, you can throw aside all concern for defense and attack with fierce desperation. So we don't get that till 2nd level. We're only 1st level, so we don't do that. Then we go down here, danger sense. Again, at 2nd level you gain, right? And then primal path at 3rd level you choose. So at this point, all of the other ability score improvements and fast attack and all this kind of stuff happen at higher levels. So we're actually done right now with the barbarian features. And note, if we hadn't had this crazy rage thing where there's all these special rules for it, it would have been really quick. It would have been like, oh, unarmored defense. Our AC is this, and blah, blah, blah. Right? Most of the other classes are like that. So we're done. Let's see here. Primal paths. I think you pick your path later. I think that's the way it works. Primal paths. Rage burns every barbarian's heart, a furnace that drives him or her towards greatness. Different barbarians attribute their rage to different sources, however. For some, it is an internal reservoir where pain, grief, and anger are forged into a fury hard as steel. Others see it as a spiritual blessing, a gift of a totem animal. Okay, so you can do the path of the berserker or the path of the totem warrior, but I believe, yeah, all these things kind of start at 3rd level. So you don't have to pick this right now. So I would say don't pick it. I would play with your character for a little while and then decide when you get up to 3rd level if you want to be a Path of the Berserker Barbarian or a Path of the Totem Warrior Barbarian. And you can read about what those do. And at some point we'll do a meeting about doing level ups and stuff like that. Okay, so if you aren't going to pick those right now, you're done. You have everything that you need based on your class and your race. For traits and features, and you will get a couple more, possibly some don't, but you will get a couple more once we pick our background. So I think that's going to be it for this one, and so yeah, until next time, keep them rolling.